You and me both. Yeah. No, I just had my stuff there and I'm out there talking to people. Oh, well. Just grab my stuff and move it. Yep. That's all right. Maybe the wrong cologne or the other than that.
How the lessons going?
Pardon me?
How are your lessons going?
Well, I haven't gone in the past couple of weeks. And then I'm leaving tomorrow morning and we're going up to Georgia where Father's buried. Going to see her stepmother and that kind of thing. So we're leaving tomorrow morning, coming back on Sunday.
Where's Father passing?
My wife's, last year. He was in the military and they had a funeral there, but they didn't have the head to it. So now they've got it, so he wants to see it.
Good turnout.
I would say so.
Hey, Mike. Should have saved us for the annual meeting.
I
Do
know.
you think it would be appropriate to also let the members know that Jennifer and Jeff and
Yeah, I'm going to. All I'm going to hit on is just real quick here. I'll introduce you guys, and then they're here.
Okay.
And then it's going to be you're our treasurer, and we're going to get up and do a report.
Okay.
Mike, we need to pass these around.
Pardon me?
List of all our
Okay. These have balances on them.
Oh, yeah.
You'll liable to have somebody get a little irritated. Ready to go? Whoa! That was pretty cool, wasn't it? That got everybody's attention. There you go. Well, good evening. I appreciate all of you coming here so that we can kind of give you all the information we have, and you guys can ask some questions later on in the evening about it, okay? I'm Mike Bowman. I'm on the board of directors here at the club. Along with, we've got Chuck Winship down there. We've got Tracy McMillan here. We have Coralie Malang there. We have Gary Huffaker here. And we have Jim Seisky here. So now we have a few representatives from the city of Dunedin. You guys aren't going to get away without getting noticed in here. We have the city manager, Jennifer Bramley. We have the head of Parks and Recreation, Vince Gizzi. And we have the commissioner and liaison to the club, Jeff Gow. Okay, thank you all for coming. And now what we're going to do is Gary's going to get up here and he's going to talk for a while. And then we will take some questions at the end of it. Okay, so keep your questions, write them down, memorize it, tell somebody else to remember it. And we want to answer everything that we can. So, all right. Gary,
All right.
it is yours.
Thanks, Mike. Well, good evening. Thank you for taking the time to come and hear what we know and perhaps ask some questions that we might be able to answer. Tonight, what I'm going to do is give you a treasurer's report, and then after the treasurer's report, I'm going to go right into a narrative of the events that have led up to the city's recommendation relative to the future management of this club. and I'll be talking about the National Golf Foundation Sustainability Study. I'll be recapping the City Commission's workshop, which we attended and where the Commission heard the recommendation of the city. And then I'll talk a little bit about our initial meeting with the city manager and the plans we have going forward to stay connected with the city manager. So the agenda calls for me to talk. I'm probably going to talk about 30 minutes, and then Kevin Janigay is here tonight, and Kevin is going to talk about 15, 20 minutes about the Donald Ross grant we received and the restoration plan. And then we're going to take a break. We'll take a 10-minute break, and when we come back, whoever wants to come back and ask questions will be here, and we'll start the Q&A session after that 10-minute break. So I'm asking you to hold your questions for Kevin and for me until after we take that break so that we can get through this material in an expeditious manner. Okay, the Treasurer's Report. Through November, the good news is the Dunedin Golf Club has revenues exceeding expenses by $231,000. In spite of adversity, and I think everybody knows what that means, we have had a great year, both on the golf course and in the food and beverage arena. In the pro shop, our unaudited results show golf revenues are up an impressive $250,000 over the prior year. Rounds were up over 6,000 rounds, which accounts for the great revenue result. For the month, revenues exceeded expenses by over $43,000. Compared to 2020, revenues were up over $92,000 for the month of November. Food and beverage net profit was 5.4%. That compares to a year ago when the net profit was only 1.5%. Pro shop revenues and member dues were approximately $170,000. Under our current license agreement with the city, the golf club has maintained a fund of retained earnings that are dedicated to capital expenses. It's called the Capital Replacement Fund, or the CRF. The concept behind the Capital Replacement Fund is that these monies will create a self-sustaining golf course. This money cannot be used for paying operating expenses, and the city reviews our requests and releases the funds from an escrow to pay for such projects. For example, we recently installed variable frequency drives and pumps in our pump house as part of our refurbishment of the irrigation system. That project was funded from our Capital Replacement Fund. The balance of our Capital Replacement Fund today is $180,000. I want you to remember that number. $180,000 is what we have to spend on capital today. In addition to the Capital Replacement Fund, the golf course also has savings. These funds are used to fund operating expenses like payroll, food and beverage costs, and grounds maintenance. In addition to the funds that come from golf and food and beverage, we also have funds that came from a federal program called the Paycheck Protection Program, or better known as the PPP. The program is an effort to mitigate the effects of the pandemic on businesses' ability to pay their employees' salaries. These funds are like a loan. If the funds can be shown to have been used according to the PPP rules, the loans are forgiven. If not, you have to pay them back. Our savings include PPP funds, about $240,000, in the bank that are expected to be forgiven by the federal government sometime in the calendar year 2022, this year. Our savings, this is a little different. Our savings, the money we have that we can say are our savings, totals about $500,000. That includes the capital replacement fund of $180,000. It doesn't include the PPP money that hasn't been forgiven yet, which is about $240,000. But it does include the first PPP installment we got, which was $121,000. So some of the money we have free and clear because we have cleared all the hurdles for keeping it. The other money, I'm not counting in the $500,000 because we haven't completed that process. Okay, so that's, in a nutshell, that's the financial status as of the end of November. However, we will have questions and answers after the end of this meeting, after the break rather, and we'll be happy to supply more information if you desire. Okay, so now I'm going to transition and I'm going to begin to address the events that have led up to the city's decision to recommend option 4 to the City Commission. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the National Golf Foundation Sustainability Study, Options and Recommendations. And the way I'm going to talk about that is tell you how we got there, how we ended up having this report issued to the city and then fed to the City Commission for action. The Dunedin Golf Club has operated the last 5 years under a license agreement, like a lease, with the City of Dunedin. The golf club operates the golf course and the food and beverage services under this license agreement with some requirements and performance metrics. The license agreement requires the golf course to place a set amount of retained earnings into a capital replacement fund, as I mentioned earlier. That's the $180,000 account that we have today. The idea is that this fund would be for major costs associated with the upkeep of the golf course and the clubhouse. In other words, the golf club would be self-sustaining by generating sufficient funds to keep the golf course and the food and beverage services operating. Over the last 5 years, the golf club has had a hard time meeting its financial commitments under the license agreement. In fact, the city has built a new pro shop and a cart barn. The golf club capital replacement funds were insufficient to fund these expenses. The city relieved the club of the burden of making mortgage payments on the clubhouse, which was a major drain on our ability to save money for the capital replacement fund. The city made major repairs and replacements to the air conditioning systems here in the clubhouse. The city is currently, a lot of people don't know this, the city is currently providing the golf club about $200,000 a year in services, in-kind services and repairs to the structures like the building that they took over. These events over the last few years were contemporaneous with the abrupt departure of our greenskeeper and a general decline in the quality of our golf course. It was also obvious to everyone concerned that the greens were long overdue for replacement, and before that could happen, our irrigation system, which was in a continual state of disrepair, would need to be replaced as well. So, despite significant city financial support, the golf club was facing a daunting future. Bad greens, antiquated, broken irrigation, and not enough money to do much about it. A recurrent refrain in the Dunedin Golf Club financial audit, an independent audit that's done annually, was this statement. The club, quote, "The club has suffered recurring cash flow problems, negative working capital, and a deficiency in the required reserve fund that raised substantial doubt about its ability to continue as a going concern." The license agreement to operate the golf club expires in June 2022, this year, June. The license agreement ends. The City Commission has determined that an independent professional opinion was needed to guide them in deciding what to do when the license agreement expires. There were many options, many opinions, and lots of hypothetical outcomes. So the city hired the National Golf Foundation after a competitive bid process. And the National Golf Foundation, NGF, was asked to study these options for going forward with the ultimate goal of having a golf course that would ultimately be self-sustaining. Are you getting the refrain? Self-sustaining. That's the idea. The golf course needs to be self-sustaining. This is the third time that NGF has been contracted with the city for work related to our golf club, so they know us pretty well. We have emailed a copy of the executive summary of this study to every club member before this meeting. What did the sustainability study recommend, the National Golf Foundation? What were their recommendations? A lot of changes. Let me list the significant ones. First, a long-term focus on planning for things like capital projects was recommended. Second, capital expenditures of about $3 million are needed to rectify golf course problems. The three top priorities being irrigation, greens, and drainage. Third, increasing the maintenance budget to keep the course in better condition throughout the year. And in fact, we are doing that this year. We are increasing our maintenance budget significantly. Fourth, improving marketing the golf course to attract more golfers and increase food and beverage revenues. Fifth, and this is one that'll get the members' attention, after golf course renovations are completed, raising rates to generate additional revenue for sustainability, as well as capping golf memberships at 225. To understand the rationale behind the sustainability study's conclusions, I urge you to read the executive summary we sent to all members before this meeting. Okay, so the city has the sustainability study. The commission understands what's in the sustainability study. The next step was the commission asked the National Golf Foundation to define options regarding how to implement their recommendations. In other words, the sustainability study defined what needs to be done. The next step was to define how it could be done. In other words, how best to manage the golf club. The NGF consultant defined 4 options for the commission to consider. Option 1 is called the as-is option. Continuing as is would include renewing the license agreement with the city, continuing to provide support in the way of about $200,000 per year, with limited control over operations. The report goes on to say that under this option, quote, the city will have to provide investment capital, that's the $3 million, to complete all of the property upgrades identified in the sustainability study, as the club does not have enough money saved to cover all recommended improvements. As a matter of fact, the club does have $500,000 in savings, so we could fund some of it. We cannot fund all of it. Option 2, full property lease is the name of this option. Full property lease would basically privatize the golf club for about 20 years in exchange for the guaranteed capital investment needed to sustain the golf club. By leasing the property, the city would be transferring all the financial risk to the lessee, the person who signs this contract, but the city would likely have very little control over how the golf club would be operated, because the guy has a 20-year lease. He's got to recover his investment, right? Option 3 is a management contract. A management contract would replace the current golf club board of directors, these guys, with a professional management company. The city would pay the management company a fee, probably about 6% of the total revenue brought in by the golf club, perhaps with some performance incentives, and the city would be financially responsible for all capital funding. So the city would still have to cough up $3 million in order to rectify the problems in the golf course. The basic structure of the management agreement is that the city of Dunedin earns all the revenues, is responsible for all the expenses and capital, and pays a management fee to the operator. Option 4 is called the custom hybrid. The custom hybrid would create a mix of city control in combination with existing club operating elements. Under this proposed structure, the facility would be operated directly by the city, by a city-employed general manager and an administrative assistant. Other staff would be contracted, that, when I say contracted, I mean not city employees, through leases and performance contracts. The city would assume all financial risk, funding all capital improvements, and contracting for third-party services wherever feasible. Golf club memberships would be retained under option 4, but the board of directors would become a board of advisors with additional members on that board from the community. Okay, agenda item number 5 is a recap of what happened with the commissioners. Okay, I'm going to tell you now that we've got the study and we've got the recommendations for the options. What did the commission decide to do? The National Golf Foundation's sustainability study and options were delivered to the city's Parks and Recreation Department. That department is led by Mr. Vince Gizzi, who attends our board meetings along with Commissioner Gow. And that department, Vince's department, conveyed a recommendation to the city commission. That's their job. Their job is to do the heavy lifting and give a recommendation to the city commissioners about what they think they should do. What they recommended was that option 4 be voted by the commission as the plan going forward. That's the hybrid, the custom hybrid. The city finance board, an advisory board to the city on budgetary matters, it's a citizens advisory board, also unanimously endorsed option 4 as the appropriate path forward for the city commission relative to the management of the Dunedin Golf Club. Okay, the main reason option 4 was recommended is that it positions the city to plan, budget, and control capital improvement expenditures that are essential for the sustainability of the golf club. Assuming a substantial financial investment by taxpayers, option 4 assures broad community leadership, better accountability to the citizens of Dunedin, and a more extensive community involvement than the other options. Parks and Recreation also said at that commission meeting that option 4 has the advantage of continuing club memberships, with members and non-members participating in an advisory board similar to the city citizen advisory boards, such as the Board of Finance and the Dunedin Marina Advisory Board. You may be familiar with those boards. Generally, Mr. Gizzi said that option 4 would provide the most seamless transition opportunity compared to options 2 and 3, because much of our current operating structure would be relatively unchanged. This recommendation by Parks and Recreation was made to the Commission in a formal presentation by the National Golf Foundation at a City Commission workshop November the 30th. The City Finance Board Chairman, Mr. Leffler, spoke to the need for the golf club to be financially self-sustaining, and therefore, Mr. Leffler and the board, the Finance Board, recommended that the club be operated under the rubric of what's known in city government as an enterprise fund. Are you okay over there? Thank you. Yeah, okay. The workshop was also attended by several golf club members who also spoke to the commission during the comments period. President Mike Bowman spoke to the fact that the golf club is currently on sound footing economically and that fixing the greens and the irrigation system would allow this to continue. Mr. Bowman asked that the commission vote for option 1 to continue as is. Another board member, Ms. McMillan, suggested that option 4 should be modified to allow flexibility in personnel decisions and the outsourcing of food and beverage services. A third club board member, Mr. Winship, who has worked for more than 40 years in the golf club management business, spoke to the complexities option 4 would bring to the city. I spoke also informing the commission that our financial position would allow a longer transition period and that racing to implement by June of 2022 was neither desirable nor necessary, in my opinion. A majority of the commissioners said they were in favor of addressing the issues that were identified in the National Golf Foundation Sustainability Study. All recognize the tremendous history of the club and its value as a community asset. How to go about that process would be left to the city manager, Jennifer Bramley, who is here tonight with us, and her transition team. A majority of the commission favored option 4, which would include hiring a general manager and assistant to be city employees. Other functions would possibly be contracted, including the golf club professional and his staff. The commission clearly supported the concept of municipal funding for the golf club, but also clearly expects a more accountable command and control system by hiring the general manager, who would ultimately work for the city commission, that is, elected officials who work for the people of Dunedin. We expect the city commission will formally adopt option 4 by a vote at a city commission meeting. Some members have asked me why the board hasn't refused to go along with option 4. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that the Dunedin Golf Club members own no equity in the golf course or its buildings. We have commented on option 4, but we do not have a vote on it. We are lessees of the club, and the city is the lessor. Analogously, if you rent a house and the owner decides not to rent it again at the end of the lease, you have no option but to vacate. You have no equity. You do not own any part of the house. The dues we pay, the money we spend at the golf club, purchase certain privileges, to be sure, but ownership of the asset and ultimately control of its disposition rests entirely with the owner, the people of Dunedin, the city of Dunedin. We also do not own the capital replacement fund or the savings in the bank. Our license agreement plainly states that the funds accumulated by the golf course operations will revert to the city control once the license agreement expires or is terminated for cause. This applies to operating funds, maintenance and clubhouse equipment, fixtures, and golf carts. Furthermore, our license says, as lessees of the golf course, we agree to refrain from doing or permitting to be done any acts or actions which would jeopardize either its performance or ability to perform our duties as custodians of this great piece of golf course history. So where does this leave us today? The city manager is working with the transition team to plan the implementation of option 4. This will include a national search process to find candidates for the general manager's position, who will be a city employee. The hiring decision will ultimately be made by the city commission, but I anticipate that the golf club, the board, these guys, will have an opportunity to influence that decision. In all such matters, however, the city manager and her transition team will own the process. The transition team will also plan the budgetary process for funding capital expenditures to bring the golf course to its desired level of sustainability. The actual process of implementing capital projects like the greens replacement and irrigation system repairs would be controlled and planned by the new general manager, who will be a credentialed expert in golf course management. The city has also retained the services of the National Golf Foundation, the authors of the sustainability study, for consulting during the transition. The board of directors and the city manager, these guys, met with the city manager on December the 14th, to discuss transition. Several important preliminary steps were made. First, the Dunedin Golf Club Board of Directors will regularly meet with the city manager, possibly with key personnel on the transition team, to receive updates on the transition planning process, decisions that have been made, timelines that are being maintained, and general progress along those timelines. Second, the Dunedin Golf Club Board of Directors will keep the city manager apprised of any Dunedin Golf Club board actions and plans that could affect transition. Third, the Dunedin Golf Club Board of Directors and the city manager will jointly communicate with Dunedin Golf Club members the status of transition planning, progress, decisions, and so forth. These communications will be joint communications so that we clearly communicate with members and keep the transition process as transparent as possible. So when you receive communications on the transition from the board, it will be after the city manager has been able to comment on that and help us revise it to make sure that it's absolutely accurate. Our goal is transparency. Our mutual goal is transparency with the members. Our general manager, Chuck Crosman, will be briefed of transition meeting outcomes, and he will keep Dunedin Golf Club employees informed. We learned that the city is planning to run the Dunedin Golf Club as an enterprise fund. This is a familiar form of government management of government-owned resources that are self-sustaining. For example, the Dunedin Marina is run as an enterprise fund. This allows the marina to fund its maintenance and operations through the revenues that it produces. The Dunedin Golf Club will be similarly managed. Revenues from the golf club operations will sustain the maintenance and the refurbishment of the course in the future. This also allows the Dunedin Golf Club to be part of the city's capital budget, giving the golf club a long-range planning vehicle that we have sorely lacked under our board culture, where we rotate off the board every 3 years. So that's a good thing. The current license agreement with the city will expire in late June of this year. However, it's clear that an orderly transition process will require a much longer window. Consequently, we learned from the city manager at this meeting that they will be working on a draft document to extend our license agreement to enable this transition. The Dunedin Golf Club Board of Directors will work with the city to finalize this extension before the current license agreement expires in June. When we receive the first draft, we will include the highlights in our transition communications to the members. I anticipate that the extension of the license agreement will take us well into next year, into 2023. However, things could change rapidly, so we'll keep you posted. One item that was briefly discussed in our first meeting with the city manager was our plan, the board's plan, to fund an engineering study of our chronic drainage problems, primarily on the back nine. I think everybody knows about the back nine drainage problems. The city manager asked us that we first work with the water experts in the city water group before hiring an outside engineering firm to perform a study. This is great news as the city has expertise in civil engineering. We hope to have meetings with them in the near future. At the very least, we hope that the study will position the city to mitigate the drainage issues at the same time they're doing the golf course renovation, so you get it all done at once. Okay. I'm almost done. It's a bittersweet irony that the COVID pandemic has improved the prospects for the Dunedin Golf Club. The city has received permission to use funds from the federal government's American Rescue Program to help fund the capital projects for the golf course and the clubhouse. These include greens replacement, irrigation system, and drainage improvements, as well as clubhouse decor upgrades. In addition, the city has access to discretionary use of funds from the penny for Pinellas taxation to help fund improvements. Of course, the funds the golf club has in the capital replacement fund will also be used to fund improvements. We anticipate continuing to grow this fund throughout the extension of the license agreement. Okay, summarize. This is the path that we're on. The city's in the driver's seat. We have the opportunity to influence the implementation of option 4. It is highly likely the golf course will receive a much-needed refurbishing, probably next year, 2023. It is likely that the license agreement will be extended to allow more time for the transition. The board will be meeting with the city regularly to understand the transition plan as it unfolds. And we will be issuing joint communiques to the membership that help everyone stay informed. Okay, next item on the agenda is Kevin. And then we're going to take a break. We'll come back after a 10-minute break. We'll come back and we'll take questions. Kevin Janiga is the chairman of the grounds committee for the club, and he's going to talk tonight about the Donald Ross Society, the grant he received, and the wonderful design that Chris Spence has put together for restoration of the golf course. Kevin? Thank you.
Good evening. I've got my crack AV guy over here, Greg Dixon. By the way, I think we got to give a big round of applause for Greg Dixon. He's the one that set up all this AV stuff, and he's recording all this. So thank you very much, Greg. Lights going up. All right. First of all, I thought Gary did a great presentation summarizing everything. I think it really did. Good information. I think that's a big part of why this meeting was requested, was to get more information. I think the members had a lot of questions. So really, it sounds like, you know, we're kind of at an inflection point with this club, and it's exciting to me. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for us. And what I want to present to you tonight is just a high-level overview of another path forward besides what was recommended in the National Golf Foundation. That was a very well-done study, but there's another path that's even more exciting and will provide even more sustainability for our golf club and make this really an iconic golf club, not just in the Tampa Bay area, but across the country. So I want to share with you some of the things that have been put together the last few months. So back last fall of, I think fall of 2020, the grounds committee at the club started talking with the Donald Ross Society about potentially getting a grant to help us do some planning. So in January of 2021, we received a $15,000 grant from the Donald Ross Society, but they explicitly asked that that money not be used for day-to-day operations, but be used for a restoration plan. And the reason why is the Donald Ross Society, they're all about preserving and restoring Donald Ross golf courses. So we received that grant, and Chris Spence did his study. But let's go back a little bit in history. Many of you know that our golf club's been around since 1927, but we found an article that was circa 1930, and it was an interview that one of the members here at the club had with Donald Ross. And he actually said that Dunedin Isles, which was the original name of our course, was his masterpiece up to that point. Now, Donald Ross designed over 400 golf courses, and to make that statement about our golf course really means a lot, because Donald Ross was considered the Michelangelo of our club. A little more of the history, of course, many of you know, was PGA National Club from 44 to 62. We hosted the Senior PGA from 1945 to 62. When the PGA left, the members took over and started leasing the course from the city. That happened in 62. Some of the capital deficiencies you see today are kind of highlighted here. The last time our fairways have been done and the last time we installed a new irrigation system that I could find in the archives was 1984. And the last time our greens were done was around 2006, 2007. So you can see that there's been a lot of capital improvements that have been postponed because of lack of funding. One of the concerns that I've heard from members around the club is, what does it mean to bring this golf course back to an original Donald Ross design? Is this going to make this course really hard and unplayable, and I'm not going to be able to score very well, it's not going to be enjoyable? Well, actually, it's counter to that, because Ross was famous for making his courses very playable for the average player, but really challenged the skilled player. And he was born in Scotland. He started building courses in the United States around 1900. He built over 400 courses. 365 of them exist today. But what he was really good at was fitting his golf courses into the land that he was given by whoever asked him to develop the course. And you can see it out on our golf course. If you notice, you'll see a lot of the greens are perched up on ridges. He used the contours of the land very well. But really, in essence, what he really was all about, and it's kind of encapsulated in his motto, he said that golf should be a pleasure, not a penance. And that's actually on one of our plaques on the 14th tee. I don't know if you've ever seen it. So I hope that, if you have concerns, as we go forward with the presentation, that what we're talking about is trying to build some, extremely difficult golf course. That's not what Ross built here almost 100 years ago. This golf course is very playable, but it was also challenging to the best players in the world. Let's talk about the current status. I'm not, Gary's covered a lot of this. I mean, we've had a tremendous run. Our rounds are up almost 10,000 rounds since the pandemic started. Revenue's way up 21%. We've got over 240 members. They play about 33% of the rounds. And as a lot of you know, we did outsource our maintenance to an outside maintenance firm in July of this year down to earth. And I think they've done a pretty good job of band-aiding the golf course as best they can. But the problem is the golf course is tired. It needs some TLC desperately. Some of the issues we're dealing with is the irrigation system's failing. The greens are approaching the end of the life cycle. We have drainage issues on 15 and 17, as well as some other parts of the course. We have encroaching trees. We have root issues. Believe it or not, our greens have shrunk anywhere from 30 to 50% since this course originally opened. The average size of these greens was between 6,000 to 7,000 square feet. We're down to 4,000 square feet right now. So that's why the greens get beat up so bad. They weren't intended to be this small. You have a lot less surface area for people to walk on. And at one time when this course opened in 1927, we had 114 bunkers. We're down to 44 today. We've lost 70 bunkers around our golf course. So a lot of that was, a lot of people say, yeah, that's good, it makes it easier. But really, a lot of Ross's bunkers were, and Chris will talk about this at our meeting on Thursday night, a lot of the bunkers were directional in nature. With Ross designed bunkers, he wasn't trying to penalize the golfer. He was trying to guide you through the golf course where he wanted you to play. Now, if you tried to take on a dog leg and try to cut a dog leg, yeah, you would get in that bunker and you'd be penalized. But it really made for a much more entertaining and fun golf course. So as I mentioned earlier, we have Chris Spence here. He'll be available to answer some questions after the meeting. But we brought Chris in back in February of 2021. Chris is a very renowned Donald Ross golf restoration expert. He's one of the few golf architects that the Donald Ross Society endorses, because Chris wants to restore the course to make it as authentic Ross as he can. He doesn't try to put his individual imprint on a golf course. He's done over 60 redesigns and restorations since he started his firm in 2000. One of them is very close to here. I don't know if any of you have played Sarah Bay down in Sarasota, but Chris just redid that golf course a few years ago, and it's magnificent. If you haven't had a chance to play it, I would highly encourage you. It's very fun to play, very playable. And Chris completed our restoration plan back in May of this year, 2021. It was presented to the grounds committee and the board at that time, but because of various issues with the pandemic and so forth, this is our first opportunity this week to present that. Now, there's been a little bit of miscommunication about what's in the restoration plan, what's not in the restoration plan, and I want to clear that up. First of all, the restoration plan that Chris put together for us would restore all the greens complexes to very close to the original Donald Ross design. He would also restore the bunkers. We wouldn't bring back all 114 because a lot of them wouldn't come into play anymore. The game's changed over 95 years. But we would restore the ones that really bring the Ross design elements to life. We would restore several of the tees. We actually had some great tees that are gone now. We used to have a tee that was up by the 11th green. That's where you teed off for number 12, right where you park your golf carts. Obviously, some of those trees were not there, but when they built the water tower back in '59, they moved the tees down. There was a tee off to the far right of number 2 green. It was a number 3 tee. And there's a couple other tees that are really interesting. We would bring those back. The restoration plan does include a new irrigation system. I don't know how this got confused with Mr. Sanger from the NGF, but that is not true. The $3.8 million that is estimated for the restoration of our course does include a new irrigation system, as well as addressed all the drainage issues on 15 and 17. Chris has got his own irrigation company, and he's pretty knowledgeable on drainage, and he's actually come up with a really interesting fix for our problems on 15 and 17. We'd also restore all the fairways, regrass them, take out a number of trees, and open up the golf course, make it more playable, get rid of some of these encroaching oak trees that are damaging our greens. The $3.8 million cost also includes enlarging and enhancing our practice facility. And if the city would be nice enough to get us some of that land back there where the par 3 would be, we could really make it world class, but we do have a plan for that. So very, very exciting, and total cost for this would be about $3.8 million. Take about 8 months to complete the project. So what I tried to do on this next slide is, and I've got some handouts later on, but I tried to compare the NGF plan to the restoration plan that I'm talking about tonight. And you can see there's a lot of similarities. The NGF plan addresses the irrigation and drainage issues. It regrasses the fairways and tees. They regrass the greens, do some restoration of the bunkers. But when you start getting to the Donald Ross elements, it really doesn't address any of those. It doesn't restore the greens to their original size or their configuration. The NGF plan really doesn't do a lot of tree removal and reestablishing the sight lines and the strategy of the golf course. It doesn't bring back any of the old fairway bunkers that really gave the course a lot of its charm and its Ross elements. It doesn't address any of the tees that we've lost. And also, the NGF plan does a little bit to the driving range, but not to the extent that Chris is proposing in the plan he put together for us. Net, and we talk a lot about sustainability, and if you were going to invest money in an investment, would you rather have a 10-year payback on your investment or a 4-year payback if you were going to spend a couple $1 million? Wouldn't you rather have a 4-year payback? Well, that's the difference between the NGF plan and the restoration plan. If you go through all the financials, that $2.75 million only generates about $220,000 in net incremental revenue. And that's after increased maintenance costs and all that stuff. So it's over a 10-year payback to recapture that 2.7. And it doesn't get you to be sustainable on a year-to-year cash flow basis. However, the restoration plan we're proposing at $3.8 million will generate $1.1 million in incremental net revenue after increased maintenance costs, which will go up because we'll obviously have a bigger golf course. And you could pay back that investment in less than 4 years. So if I'm a steward of a golf course or steward of an investment in our city, we have several city officials here today, I would strongly encourage you to take a really hard look at this plan because it gives you a much better return on your financial investment. Not only that, but it's going to impact the city of Dunedin in a much more positive way. With this type of golf course that we're proposing to bring back, we would probably bring back about 5,000 destination golfers a year that would come from all over the country just to play our golf course and other Donald Ross courses in the area. Do you know how much a destination golfer spends when they go on a golf trip? About $500 a day. So if we got a destination golfer to spend 4 days in the Dunedin area, they'd spend about $2,000. Well, you multiply that by 5,000 golfers, that's only 10% of the rounds that we do. That's a $10 million Dunedin economic impact. And you talk about history. Like a lot of history buffs in here. I'm one of them. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a tired, old, worn-out golf course that has no Donald Ross really left in it, just redo the greens, call it a day? Or would you try to bring it back and make it something that's iconic, that's a destination, that would put Dunedin on the map as a golf destination? That's what we're talking about here. I've heard a lot of concerns about cost. You know, how does this work with the cost? You know, and how do you get to those numbers, Kevin? Well, I've talked to about 3 or 4 different Donald Ross municipal golf courses around the country. I said, hey guys, what happened to your golf course pre and post restoration? In Mooresville, North Carolina, which Chris did, they were doing about $800,000 a year in golf revenue prior to the restoration. It's been about 4 years since that restoration now, 5 years. They're doing $2 million a year in golf revenue, and they've capped their greens fees, I think, at 55 or 60 bucks a round. They can get more than that, according to the GM I talked to. So they're up 1.2 million. Another golf course in Charleston, it's a Seth Rayner design that they restored. They doubled their revenue post-restoration. Talked to the golf course in Mill Creek, Ohio. They have 36 holes at Donald Ross. They've doubled their revenue since restoration. There are a lot of people out there that want to play great classic golf courses like Donald Ross, and they'll pay money to come play them. But in terms of our assumptions, we said, okay, the NGF plan says, okay, greens fees will be anywhere from $20 to $95, and we're going to cap the members at $225. Well, the problem with that plan is, yeah, you'll make a bunch of money during the season when you don't have as many members. You can charge a lot, but what are you going to do through the summer? Who sustains this golf course through the summer? The members do, because there are not that many people playing, and the ones that do, they get pretty low greens fees. With a fully restored Donald Ross golf course, we could get about $45 a round from a Dunedin resident. We're proposing like a 3-tiered pricing system. So if you're a Dunedin resident, you buy a Dunedin golf card for 50 bucks a year, and you can play our golf course for $45 anytime you want to play it. Now, if you're a Florida resident, we're going to charge you $85. And then if you're from out of state, we're going to charge you $105 a round. That was the assumptions I made in this plan. And that is exactly what the golf course in San Francisco, I don't know if any of you watched the PGA, Harding Park, that's a public golf course there. That's what they charge on their rates. And we could probably get even a little higher on the out of town if we wanted to. And that's what all drives that extra $1.1 million a year in revenue. How about dues? I've heard a lot of concern. Well, if we redo the golf course, we're going to price a lot of members out of the market. Well, the NGF plan calls for dues to be about $3,100 a year, about $258 a month, and they're going to cap at 225 members a year. In our analysis, we said, okay, let's take the member rates up to $300 a year, but if you've been a member for 5 years or more, we're going to give you a 10% discount. If you were a member 5 years or more prior to the restoration work, we're going to give you a 10% discount. So you'll pay $270. And then our associate members pay about $160. And that's really, if you do this update them in a couple of years. That would happen just by inflation pretty much. And so that's what we're talking about with this plan, and I think it's pretty exciting. You can see kind of the assumptions that were made that I just talked about. So we would have 3 member levels. We'd have a full member level, a founding member, an associate member, cap it at 300. Dues would go up $10 per year. Basically the same cart fee as we have today, and then, you know, the public greens fees rates that we just talked about. So, and kind of wrap this up, what are the key benefits? One, will generate a lot more money to be sustainable. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about, right? The city doesn't want to have to keep financing and subsidizing our golf course. The reason they have been is because we've got a worn out golf course. We don't have a good product. We need a better product. And with this plan, we'll generate an extra $1.1 million a year, become financially sustainable for decades. 2, we've become a major golf destination. We could generate millions of dollars in incremental tourism revenue for the city. 3, very exciting, we believe very strongly that with the restored Donald Ross Golf Course, we can get the Senior PGA Championship back here. I think they would love to come back here, given all the history. We had that tournament for 17 years here. 4th, it will enhance real estate values in the area, so that will increase the tax base. I think the city would like that. And then finally, it provides a more playable, accessible golf course for local residents, and it really preserves a very important historic Dunedin asset, the Dunedin Golf Course. That's the reason why I'm a member here. I'm sure many of you are the same way. You love the history, you love the Donald Ross design. It's just this poor baby's worn out. It needs some TLC desperately. And if we're going to spend the money and the time, why not spend $1 million more and let's do it right? So at the end of the day, it's really about, do you want a plan that you just survive, or do you want a plan where you can thrive? And we think the restoration plan will allow us to thrive. So next steps. We have a more detailed meeting. I'm sure a lot of you have questions. Chris Spence has agreed to do a real deep dive into the restoration plan, show you hole by hole details, talk about the individual cost components, whatever else you want to talk to. I call him the Donald Ross Golf Course Whisperer, because this guy knows everything about Ross courses. He's really great. Also at the meeting on Thursday night, which we have a cocktail at 5:30, meeting starts at 6. We have Brad Becken, who's the president of the Donald Ross Society, will be coming. Brad is a really interesting guy. He's played all 365 Donald Ross courses that are still in existence today. So I think I'm going to have a little duke out between Chris and Brad to see who knows more about Donald Ross. Second thing is, I really want to encourage the Dunedin Golf Course Board to endorse and recommend this restoration plan to the city. I know you've had some concerns. If I haven't addressed them tonight, please grab me or Chris. Let's talk about it. If there's some issues with this plan that you don't like, it's not set in stone. We can modify it and compromise, but we really think this is the best path forward. We really do, and we think it'll be really exciting for the Dunedin community. Finally, we want to lobby the city officials to invest in the restoration plan. They've already made a significant commitment, and if we can just get them to commit a little bit more money, we can take this thing to the next level. And then finally, once we get all those commitments, we can allocate the appropriate funds and get this restoration project going. Chris is chomping at the bit to kind of lead the project, and he's done municipal golf courses before, so he understands the process, and it's really exciting. So again, thank you for your time. I know we're going to take a break. If you have any questions, also have some handouts on the presentation if you'd like those too. But thank you again.
Okay, take a 10-minute break. If you have some questions, come back. If you don't have any questions, thank you for coming, and we appreciate it.
Just one thing, Mike. This is a special meeting of the members. We have enough people here for a quorum. We can make motions. We can take a vote. It takes a simple majority to pass a vote. So please come back. The board is here for us to express our opinions. We've had this plan for 9 months. We haven't heard about it. I think it'd be very valuable for you all to come out and communicate with the board.
Thank you, Rick. As Kevin said, Thursday evening they're going to be having a get-together, and they'll go through everything and answer whatever questions you want concerning this.
10
So,
minutes.
10 minutes. The clock is running.
Well, thank you.
That was well done.
Well, thank you.
That was really well done. My
Thank you.
goodness. Now I have to grab a copy of that. I'm saying, wow, a lot has been done over the last 6 months. Wow, very good.
Yeah. It's kind of a long story.
Yeah, I know, but you did it well. You expressed it well.
You guys are going to stick around a little bit, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
If there's some questions. Hey. Good. How are you? No, we didn't talk about it.
Oh, thank you.
We're still kind of flying here, so we'll have to get down into it. Yeah. You can ask, but I don't know if we're going to be able to tell you too much.
I saw that there's already an email out with increases built in, right?
Yes. Yeah. They're not much. I don't
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. January, April, and July, will it stay that way in July? Is that a 3-time increase? Is that what that means?
think. Honestly, I'd have to look at it again. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I wish somebody will.
Sooners, the Sooners. And then I taught art history down here. Hi, Jim. I got into teaching as an adjunct over at the college teaching class because I love art history.
How are you?
So, a whole new heat up from
Yeah, I know. I can never tell with masks until they take them off.
Take it, Jeff Bowman's your brother?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would go off, and then it would take longer, and I would lose it. I would forget.
That's my only brother, though. So that's it.
I couldn't leave it to that much leeway. Thank you.
You're fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. You're a super job. I have to hire him on the staff to go.
Yeah.
I'm retired.
Professor. How are you? Good. How are you?
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah, yeah.
You heading out, or you gonna wait around a little bit? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I will moderate the questions,
Yeah, that's fine.
and then at some point, Rick is probably going to ask for some kind of vote. I don't know if we're going to have a quorum. Well, thank you. Thank you. It sounded like I was telling the truth.
I mean, really, seriously, that was really well done.
All right,
You
thank
did
you.
it quickly and real well done.
Thank you.
I always knew you were smart.
No, that's fine. You can take it. Yeah. 'Cause
Look at this.
We've got to shut that down.
I know. Look at this. You remember I asked you guys for questions?
Yeah.
Look.
Wouldn't they have to have wouldn't they have to have a quorum of the entire
Yeah.
members?
Yeah.
So they're not going to be able to pick up. What do we have? 200 members? 240 members? They can't get a majority of that.
You've got to have a quorum. I don't know what a quorum is. You have to ask Tracy.
It's a portion, but I
It's in the bylaws.
yeah.
I don't remember. Jim should know because remember. Hey, Jim, what was our quorum number?
20%.
20%. We have 240 members, so you have to have 48 people. If you have 240 members.
Yeah, about 48.
Yeah. That's what I thought. 20%.
I don't know if this was advertised as an action meeting.
Yeah. I don't see how you could take a vote on something. Well, no, Rick's wanting to vote on, to try to get them sweep going after the Ross layout. Yeah.
That's another $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Come on Thursday night. Come on Thursday night. We want to get the details. Chris puts on a really good presentation. Yeah, the other option. You all got to do with prices. The other option.
Well, we got about 3 or 4 minutes left.
Where's Greg? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. All I know is the number 240. I would think that's 240 golfing members, not social. I think social may be even bigger. Is Chuck out there? I can ask Chuck.
Quite a few of them. Magazine. That's on it. Oh, yeah. We're right about there, are we? Well, where'd he go? Here you go.
Chuck says.
Okay, if everybody will take your seat, please. There you go. Have fun.
All right, take your seats, please. If you're going to leave, leave now. If you're going to stay, sit down.
A man, a few words.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Had to get that drink, eh? Yeah, I know those guys in the back row back there have been drinking all night, so I don't even know if they. You guys awake back there? All right, good. All right. Okay. As promised, we would open the floor to questions about the Dunedin Golf Club transition. You can also ask questions about the restoration. I want to echo Kevin's invitation on the 13th, Thursday at 6 p.m. You'll be able to see the restoration plan in great detail. I've seen some of that when Mr. Spence came here the first time. It's a really, it's great. I mean, if you play golf here and you love this golf course like I do, I mean, it's a very interesting take on what this golf course could be. So I urge you to attend that, and I will be here again because I want to see it again. Okay, questions, raise your hands, please, and I will call on you. In the back.
I think it's important Thursday night that decision makers from the city attend that meeting to understand it. I think that they should be there.
Okay.
We'll be
Thank you.
All right, Rick.
Yes, at the workshop, the mayor said that she had been told that the members did not want the restoration.
Mm-hmm.
How is that conclusion drawn, and what are we going to do to tell the city what the members want, not what the board wants?
I have no insight into Mayor Bujalski's personal life and who told her that, thankfully. But I will say this. Rick, the city commission is the key to the path forward for us in terms of influencing how this golf course is refurbished and restored. It's not the city, okay? The city does what the city commission tells them to do. The city commission represents the will of the people because they are the elected officials. So I think it's important for all of us, if you have an interest in the outcome of this whole process, you need to be talking to the city commissioners and telling them this is what we want. This is what we care about. These are the things that we think are important. And so I think that there's no unanimity about option 4 on the board. We don't agree. We haven't been able to agree on anything relative to option 4 as a group unanimously. We don't agree on the restoration plan. We don't agree on hardly anything. And we're just like you guys. So how do you reconcile that? I think you reconcile it by advocating for your side. That's what democracy is all about. You advocate your side. That's what I think.
So I feel like the board has made representations, maybe in private, to the commissioners directly, perhaps to the city manager directly,
About
what the membership wants. And it's not reflective of what the membership wants.
okay.
I think the only way that we can get to saying what the membership wants is by a vote.
Okay. So are you asking if the board would be willing to take a referendum on the restoration plan? Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking the board to tell us how we're going to proceed. Because right now it seems to me like the board is waiting to the city, the commissioners, to tell them how you will proceed. We missed an opportunity at the workshop to present what we wanted. We didn't really present much in terms of strategic planning at the workshop. We said, the club's been doing fine in 2021, why don't we just continue that? We recommended continuing with option 1. But the biggest weakness in option 1 is that we have not had a strategic plan. And I don't think we overcame that. And we had an opportunity for that, to do that, because we had a plan. Instead, the board presented no plan.
Okay. Next question. Yes?
Do we have a process for the important people from the city manager, the commissioner, Parks and Recreation Director, to have ongoing communication with the board about all of the options that we have between option 1 and option 4, to make it so that we arrive at something that's workable for everybody?
Well, yeah, the meeting, the first meeting we had with the city manager was oriented toward our telling the city manager some of the concerns that we have and that members have voiced to us. And the city manager promised transparency and a regular audience so that we can hear what they're thinking and how they're going forward. So yeah, there is a process, but it's in its infancy, and it remains to be seen how diligent we are about following through on that process and what kind of information is actually filtered back to the employees. Hold on, hold your comment. Hold,
And they can't hear the question.
hold on just a second.
That's the only reason I'm interrupting.
Oh, okay. I'm going to yield to Ms. Bramley.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here this evening. Hello, hello. I just want all of you to know that I am a golfer as well, a terrible golfer, but aren't we all? I'm not even good enough to be mad when I don't play well. You know, what was that, Tom Watson, right? I want to talk a little bit, Tony, you asked that question, right? A little bit about the process that we're going to use moving forward. And it really is going to be based upon transparency with the board. We're going to be meeting on a regular basis probably once a month, or even more often if we need to convey to the board. And Gary did such a super job of summarizing all the activities to date, but I will say one thing. He talked about us meeting and us conveying to the board the activities that we've taken. We're consensus direction. We are going for option 4. And then members of your board said, we want to see a hybrid of option 4, where you address food and bev and you address our employees and that type of thing. And that was a direction that we had from the city commission. And that's really what we're working on. But it really is based upon these meetings that we're having with your board. And then they will, in turn, convey that information to all of you. And also, all of you as members of the club are more than welcome at any time to give me a call, to give Vince a call, to give Commissioner Gao a call to find out exactly what the status is. Commissioner Gao and Vince Gizzi, Director of Parks and Recreation, also, as you know, sit with the board once a month. So that communication has been in place for a long, long time. So I just wanted to convey that from the city's side, that we're really going to be communicating on this transition plan. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the questions were not being heard. All right. Brian?
I just wanted to ask, has the city seen the restoration plan, and if so, what was the purpose behind withholding that from them through the numerous meetings they've had? This has been around for a while, and I think we'd all agree it's awesome.
I don't believe they have seen the detailed restoration plan. I think Brian's.
Would you repeat the question?
Yeah, Brian asked if the city officials have been briefed on the restoration plan in detail about what it is. And Kevin, my understanding is that you have not. And so tonight was probably the most you've heard about it in any detail. So they will be here Thursday for the meeting on the restoration plan, and they will have the opportunity to hear in more detail what that plan's all about.
What has been the board's apprehension? Why isn't there not presented by the board specifically?
We have no unanimity on the plan, and we don't really feel that it's our position as a board to advocate something we're not unanimously committed to. We do represent the membership, but we do think for ourselves, Steve. Yeah, Bill?
That's my point. You talked before about how the commission works for the city.
Yes.
The members and the people of the city, they represent them because they were voted for. We voted
Right.
all of you in, so should we be representing what we feel as what should be done for the
Well, I understand that elected representatives are in some way accountable to the voters. And if you don't think that the board is representing your views, you should vote them out.
Well, that's what will happen.
I would appreciate that. All right.
You are supposed to be representing the membership.
Yes.
The membership is extremely frustrated that this plan that has not been presented to the city, and it's given one monolithic side. From the membership's perspective, it's blatantly wrong. From the city's perspective, that's also not really good, because it's in the city's interest to create the best product here, that the restoration plan has not really been presented in any depth, and I want to know how that's going to be corrected.
Look, we've had one transition meeting, okay? We haven't gotten into any of the nuts and bolts of how this is going to work yet. I mean, we've basically just agreed to talk, and we are way back from a commitment of any money yet or any plan to do the refurbishment, either pro restoration or not. We're not there yet. We're way off from that. We're probably at least 6 months to a year away. So, excuse me. I think that it's presumptuous on your part to think that we're negligent because we haven't done something that's really not required at this point. Our attention has been focused on getting the membership tonight together so we can tell them how we got to where we're at. Now, I realize that you and perhaps other people would like to go toward the restoration plan. I'm kind of like that too. I think it'll be a great plan, but we're not there yet. Okay, next question.
Yeah, Gary, I understand that the restoration plan has been presented to the board back in May approximately of last year.
Right.
I guess the question is why, at that point in time or since then, didn't the board go to the membership and ask the membership to have a vote? Are you for or against that plan? You say you don't have unanimity on the board,
Right.
but your job as the board of directors is to do what the membership wants. And even if you didn't agree, if the membership agreed that that's what they wanted, you should have presented it that way.
Well, I understand that you would like the members to vote on this plan, but in July, we knew that we didn't have enough money to do a greens refurbishment. We had no idea where the money was going to come from. It was totally academic. And in fact, I told the grounds committee when this subject was first broached, you're going to have to go find somebody to fund this. We can't do this. We do not have the money. Do you remember what's in the capital replacement fund? Does anybody remember? $180,000. We need at least 3 or 4 million. Okay, and so then all of this issue of the sustainability study was really what triggered the possibility that we might actually have an opportunity to influence the city about how this golf course is refurbished. And I think we do. Okay, next question. Yes.
I'd like first just to say, regardless of what has transpired in the past, I appreciate the board allowing Kevin to give the presentation tonight so the city could hear it.
Great.
So at least we're off to a start with that.
Yep.
This is probably water under the bridge, but I have a quick question. When the Golf Federation did their study, was there a recommendation on what they would be able to charge for rent on that 20-year lease project?
No, I don't recall.
There wasn't any
It was
discussion on what income that would be.
It was 100-page report. It may be buried in there, but I don't remember it. I can't speak to that. Yes, Mike?
Gary, can I ask a question? So I'm a very simple person. But
Uh-oh.
understanding that we're all in a transition period going forward,
Right.
so we can't know what we don't know yet. But at some stage, I'm quite confident that the transition committee will achieve its objective and there will be a new structure for the private sector going forward. And one of their first priorities will be to decide what restoration they're going to do, who they're going to do it with, and how it's going
Yeah.
to happen.
Yeah.
That, I guess, so my question is, in some respects, at that point in time would be the appropriate time for all presentations on different kinds of restoration, etc., to be looked at by the members, decided whether we like it, don't like it, what we can suggest, so that at least for the new structure, whatever it might be, actually says, well, at least the members would like to go this way, and we've heard from other people. It's a question of the timing. I think
Yeah.
at that stage, it's not a member's decision right now what we do. Right now, the members have no skin in the game whatsoever.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what we think, but it will matter, and we have a chance to make it matter
It will.
at the right moment. So I think the question really is, isn't it just the question that while all this is happening, the own the restoration project going forward, so it actually happens. That's my question. Maybe this is somewhat premature to have any
Well,
discussions to talk about them, but they're not going to really get any traction until the transition committee has got through.
it's true. It's true, but the counter argument is if you don't start early and you don't start politicking and you don't start talking to your city commissioners and you don't start driving. I mean, Kevin's been driving this for a long time. Okay, he's like a voice in the wilderness. Okay, and so it's incumbent on people to advocate to their elected officials that if you're going to put money into this golf course, there's this plan that might generate a lot of economic benefit to the city of Dunedin. And that's a fair thing to say.
I think that's fine, but what I think I'm saying is may echo what someone else is saying. It would be very useful for whatever that plan is going forward. If the commission knows it's got the backing of the members, it's talked about and that's what the members are supposed to do.
Right.
It doesn't mean it will carry it, but at least the members have been consulted and they know that's what they would like.
Right.
That I think is
I understand. Right. I agree. Yes.
Has there been any consideration of the board for just letting the license agreement expire and put all the onus on the city to run the course properly? Just let it die in June,
No.
okay? One of the problems with all the options presented by the NGA is that it doesn't solve the problem of the us versus them attitude between the city and the golf club. There's a continuing mood of the city that we're subsidizing the golfers and we're not gonna give them money. And I think if we remove the board, then there's no us and them, it's only the city.
Well, you know,
And
I understand that, but
if the board is gonna wait for unanimity to make a decision, then the board's not gonna, they're not accomplish anything, just be done with it.
I think that we're going to have an opportunity to influence how this unfolds. That's what Jennifer was saying. And I think that it's better to work with the city than to walk away and say, you know, see how you like it, running this place, June the 22nd. That would be crazy. I can't believe you suggested that. Where did you go to college?
Absolute agreement that there's gotta be a way between option one and option four for the board and the city to work something out that will meet all of the financial situations and end up with something that is best for Dunedin. So I think we need to find a way to work together with the city.
Well, I think that's the board's stated intention. You know, we want this to be successful. We want the golf course to be here in a better state come 2023 than it is now. We want, and if it's a Donald Ross restoration, so much the better, as far as I'm concerned. I'm okay with that. I think it's great. But in order for the city to do these kinds of things, it's the city, it's government. You have to work through the channels. You have to talk to the elected officials. You have to work with the city officials. You can't have it both ways. You can't be petulant and then expect them to be forthcoming with you. So our leadership, our leader has done a really great job of staying in touch with the city officials and working with them and commenting to them about where we would like to go. It may not necessarily represent the will of the people, but it is a vision that says we're going to make this golf course a better golf course, and it may or may not be perfect as far as we're concerned, but it'll be better. Okay? Yeah. Right.
So there's gonna have to be a lot of things on their part to the other residents of this city related to, once that expenditure becomes public and becomes part of their budget, that they'll have to defend that in some form. So we have to keep that in mind too. It's
Sure.
extremely important that we continue to support the city if we're gonna see that money come this direction.
Right, and option 4 requires more community involvement in the operation of the club through the advisory board. And it will be a municipal golf course. It won't be a public-private golf course. It'll be a municipal course.
Now, on a much more selfish basis, I'm one of those pitiful nine-hole members. Looks like I'm being priced out here, so to speak. Just concerned about the incremental increase that I think I saw in an email. And look, $150 a month for my wife and I to play out here, I mean, that's okay, no question about it. But there's a significant increase going forward. We're not that active, and at some point, we'll have to compare pay-as-you-go versus
Right.
the nine-hole membership.
Yes.
Okay. Just food for thought. And I'd also like to state one other thing. I've heard that there may be some cap to membership in the plans.
That's what the National Golf Foundation recommended. If you read the summary, what you will learn is that the NGF feels that once the golf course is restored or refurbished, depending on your vision, the peak tee times, on-peak tee times, will be much more valuable, and therefore you can't have reasonable member rates and have them using up those peak tee times during peak season. So the idea is you balance the number of memberships that you have so that you can sell these expensive tee times when the tourists are here for, a higher rate. And so that's just a number that the NGF threw out. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it's going to work. It's just that was in the study.
And again, one last follow-up to the nine-hole thing.
Yeah.
If someone would, not tonight, but I don't understand the logic behind processing out nine-hole members. The other thing I would say about capping members, you need to do a lot of research into that. I don't know with a municipal golf course, a municipally owned golf course, if you'll be able to cap membership. I think you need to do some research into that.
Okay. Okay.
Hey Gary, so just looking at the cost of both parks, I'll say that I really like the full restoration plan. The cart barn, that was budgeted right around $300,000 and it ended up costing 1.2. Is the city prepared, if it happens, and this 2.75 gets multiplied by 3, are we just going to stop construction in the middle, or is the city going to be prepared to support that?
I would have been really disappointed, Clint, if someone hadn't brought up that damn cart barn. Now look, here's the thing I'll say about the cart barn. It was a real crash and burn scenario with it. The city went with a low bid. He couldn't perform. They had a hard time finding people to come in and finish it. City people had to be used. We've been told by the city that they've learned their lesson relative to low bids, and they have implemented some of those lessons learned in the construction of the new city hall, the project, and it's going a lot better. And so there's that. The other thing I'll say is I'm not sure that building a cart barn and running a golf course are really analogous. What I would put my faith in is that when they hire a general manager, they're going to do a national search, and they're going to come up with the very best general manager they can find, and he's going to be responsible for the architecture and the implementation of the project, and I think that will help overcome a lot of those concerns. And I will yield the floor to the city manager.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I told Vince during a meeting on a different subject earlier today that if somebody brought up the cart barn, I was going to throw something. So Clint, come on over here. But I anticipated that it was going to happen. The cart barn started off as a re-roof, as you know, of the existing building. So it was a completely different project than what it turned out to be, unfortunately. And it inflated exponentially as we went along. And so that was why we had to take the low bid, because the funds weren't budgeted in our capital project plan. That said, we got it done. I think it's beautiful. It definitely serves its purpose. This is a different project, though, because we are going to get our estimates. It's going to go through a public procurement process. We'll get our estimates ahead of time. The scope of the project will be outlaid, no matter what the project is, and I don't know yet, but will be designed and conveyed to the contractors in its entirety, which is not what happened with the cart barn, because it started as a whole different project. So 2 different projects entirely. And one last thing I'll say is that the city in the last 2 years has completed, or is in the process of completing, about $160 million in capital improvements. Water, wastewater, the new city hall, and all of our infrastructure projects, and all of those are on time and within budget, so we can do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rick.
So if things proceed optimistically, some type of renovation might start in 2023.
Yes.
So are we going to have grass to play on between now and the late summer of 2023? Is there any plans to make the course acceptable playing conditions between now and the
Yes. In fact, that is our job. I mean, that is us. I mean, the board is responsible for continuing to meet the obligations of the license agreement, generate revenue, and upkeep of the course. And in fact, the National Golf Foundation recommended that we increase our budget for grounds maintenance by $175,000, and that's what we're doing. We're almost going to spend about $1 million on maintenance this year, so it should be better. Okay. Now I think we're in a we're blessed with a warm winter, right? We didn't overseed, so we're not going to have the nematode problem that we have every spring when we feed the worms all during the winter with ryegrass, which is totally contrary to what the agronomists at the University of Florida say you should do. So I think we're going to have grass, okay? So if we don't have grass, it's my fault, okay? Vote me out. Bill, vote me out, man, if you don't have any grass. All right. What else? Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Come to Kevin's meeting.
All right. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, we really, Kevin has publicized the heck
Now
out
I'm
of
going to
it.
get up at 4 in the morning and drive.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Next meeting is Thursday at 6 o'clock.
And that's the, thank you. That's the. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a.
I'm excited about it.
Oh, it's you won't believe it. You'll get excited.
I live on the 6th hole.
Okay, you'll like it. All right. See you, Mike. Well, we haven't gotten there yet. I mean, we're not negotiating anything.
Good job, Gary. Good job.
No, in fact, we're not negotiating anything. We don't have a vote. We don't have any authority at all. No, I don't think so. They got money. They got money. They got money from the American Rescue Plan, and they've already gotten authorization to spend it. They got $18 million. They need the parking, but they also need a golf course. They're going to fix the golf course.
All right. I'm heading out early tomorrow.
course, food and beverage. Nobody wants to run food and beverage in a golf club. You can't make money.